0 into my 4.4 book assignment, but like I typed in 0 before it was like when it was due.
Did you get it back? Check in that white bin back there. You see the thing with the trays in the very corner? There should be one that says 4th period. See if it's in there so I can see it again. It doesn't save, so I'll put it in and I'll get it back to you.
Thanks.
We use an online gradebook, so sometimes it'll let me type stuff in, but if it's actually not connected to the internet, it doesn't save it, and I have no way of knowing. So thank you for checking and letting me know. Evelyn was here. Sarah. Alan. There. Where's John? Okay, you guys will need a blank piece of paper, and you need to get out number 24 from last class to see if you have that finished or not.
Yesterday.
Check. It's probably because you came in late. You need to start. Yeah. You need to make sure you get here on time. Those tardies are going to keep you from exempting too. Okay. So I had kind of mentioned our plan here yesterday when I saw you guys, but to get us going here, because everyone might be at a slightly different spot. So I told you on that number 24, the worksheet that had all of the graphs, and you were using a calculator to try to guess and check, try to come up with any equation that would match that graph up perfectly. If you didn't finish that in class, I said you didn't need to worry about doing it for homework, because I would let you start off class today finishing that up if you need to. So if you were finished with 24, you can move on to 25 on your own. Or as you finish 24, you can move on to 25. 25 is just 25 is, I think, 5 questions that I found online from ACT practice websites, practice type questions over these topics. So since this is a big deal on the ACT anymore, I think it's good for you to see what they think it looks like on the ACT. I know that you've only seen these topics for one day, but it's still just kind of showing you what ACT might look like there. So I'm going to come around and make sure that I get all the help, or give all the help that's needed to finish up 24. After that, I will be kind of looking over your shoulder a little bit to see if you're done with 25. And when it looks like everyone's done with 25, I will share the answers with those. And we can go over all 5 of them if we need to, but realistically, you probably only want to talk about 1 or 2 of them. So we can go over those. But at the same time, as you finish 24, move on to 25. Likewise, if you finish 25, you can move on to 26. 26 is the book assignment for this section. And again, it's kind of a restart. The first few questions should be a little more basic. So you might need your notes as a quick reminder to get started in there. But one of the handouts I had for you guys was a piece of graph paper. You don't have to use the graph paper, but within the book assignment there is a few questions they ask you to graph. So if you prefer to do that on graph paper, that's why I set that out. But I'm fine if you want to do it on notebook paper. It's just a little harder to it's a little bit harder for some people. Okay, let me know if you don't know what you need to be working on. And otherwise, just call me over and let me help you with 24F. Now, one thing I will say about number 24, if you didn't get that finished in class yesterday, you need to remember that your calculator window settings have to be something specific, and your calculator needs to be in radian mode for your answers to look right. If you don't know, and this is probably a different calculator than you used yesterday, unless you have your own. So if you don't remember the window settings, on the top of the front page of number 24, it tells you what window settings to set it at. And of course, as always, some of the book questions should be pretty easy and quick, but you want to get as much of that done as you can, so that, because I do need you to finish that as the homework if it's not enough class time. So first thing we'll do on Tuesday of next week is I'll let you ask your questions. So, well, not the first thing, but pretty close to the first thing. Well, do you want to start off with sign or code? Yeah. Okay, well, it could be either, so it doesn't really matter. But regardless of which one you pick, the amplitude is going to have to be what? Okay, so let's put the 2 in for A. And then you said cosine, so let's try cosine. Also, regardless of whether you pick sine or cosine, the period's going to be the same. So if we start here at 0, it looks like you have to go to here to see the full cycle. So that's 2 pi. So that means B should be B is the number next to x. And 2 pi divided by B gives you your period. So if you want the period to be 2 pi, then you want B to be 1. Okay, so let's just put in the x. We probably need to shift it left to right some, but that's, yeah, we can worry about that. Let's go ahead and close your parentheses there. And then one thing I'm sure about is you see how more of the graph's below than above? So the whole thing's being shifted down some. So let's try -1. Okay, let's graph that and see how close we are. So that's looking right. But what you can do is you can take a point that you're sure about, like 0, 1, figure out where you can move that to here. See how it's at the top of the thing? So we can match it to the top of the thing. And then how much of a shift is that there?
Well, this would be pi over 2, or no, this would be 5. This is pi over 2.
Correct.
That's like pi over 4.
Okay, so go back to your equation, and let's make it next to x. Let's make it go right. Pi over 4. Now really, if there's a number in for b, it's more complicated. C divided by b determines how much. Okay, and then let's retry. And looks good to me. So yeah, the shifting the moving it left to right is kind of tough. So that's why if you graph the parts that you feel pretty comfortable with, and you just take a point on the graph and you try to like map where it goes to, it helps you kind of figure out where it needs to, how much it needs to move.
Very good, 25.
The test, I don't remember. This quiz will be no. One of the things we'll do on Tuesday is I have some practice quiz for you. So just like we did with the first two sections of class, we do give you a practice quiz in this section to help you make sure that you're at the right difficulty level. Which one are you working on?
I've done everything. So I guess if you work on this one.
Okay, that's not everything, that's two then. You've got one thing done. You need to be on 25 if you've got 24 done.
This one's 25 right here.
I don't know what this is, but you need to make sure you're not working on it right
Doing every class.
now. Well, I don't know what to tell you, you're not doing it during my class, so
Alright.
you can either not do it or I can take it away from you, so.
I should probably put it down like that. See, these are little 10. I have to do a wrap.
You have to do what?
A wrap and a cover for this one. It's a big project.
Well, I guess if you finish that book work, you can move on to that, but. now my focus is helping anyone that's still on handout 24. So anybody working on that one have any questions you need me to come look at with? Okay. As you do, just call me over or bring it up here. And as you finish that, move on to 25. As you finish that, move on to 26. Again, once I think everyone's done with 25, we'll look at those answers and talk about a few. And then once everyone makes it to the book assignment, I will help out as I always do with as much as we have time for. Yep.
This one? What does the tune be?
I'll take questions from that once everyone's had time to try it. I don't want to help with individuals. Just do whatever you would do on the ACT. Just make your best educated guess.
Alright.
The answer should just be one though.
That's what I thought.
Amplitude's half that distance.
Alright. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay. Anything from the vocab check?
I didn't know what that was.
Number 4. D, this number that you add to subtract would be a vertical shift. That's how it goes up or down. Working on. Okay. Well, yours is repeating faster than this is, so that's going to be period. So that tells me your V value is going to have to change. So if I just pick a point on the graph and start measuring, I have to look at this whole thing to see one cycle. This is the full pattern. So if this is negative 2 pi and this is positive 2 pi, your period needs to be 4 pi. Now for you to figure out what V needs to be, I would do this, but you need to set it equal to 4 pi. And then that gives you an equation that you can solve. So,
Okay, how are we counting like cycles for this?
well, the cycle is just the full pattern before it starts repeating. So I typically try to start at 0, just because 0 is easy. And then I just go far enough till I can see that it's about to start repeating itself again.
Okay.
And then, so this was 0 at the 2 pi, so that's why its period was 2 pi. If you start here, you have to go all the way to here before the pattern starts to repeat, but that's also 2 pi. But this one, all of this is one cycle, so that's why the period is 4 pi. Now if you multiply both sides by V and divide both sides by 2 pi, or 4 pi, you should get V as a half. And then that part of your equation should be right at least. would be what the front is for. I would also suggest maybe rewatching the class video from last class. That would be at the same speed. During advisory, it'd be like 5 minutes or less. So I don't know if this could be real helpful. You know where to see the class recordings on the website?
I'm pretty sure I have it.
You might look for it while you're here, so that way if you can't, I can show you where it is.
I was finished up right here. I was finished up right here.
Oh, good. You can move on.
Okay.
Okay, we're gonna go over those ones here. You can move on to that one. Again, I will take questions from number 25 once everyone has finished it. Some people still finishing up 24 to get before they get to 25 though. But those of you that are done, you should just move on to 26. Because that is what's going to determine how much homework you have. It's still going to be D though, so it's still going to be a vertical shift. Because either whether you put it at the end or at the front, it's making Y3 bigger. So at every point is 3 bigger. It's going to make the whole function of 3. You heard what I said? Y'all are just used to it being at the end, but it could be at the front.
Yes.
Yeah.
You look like you have a question.
I do. Oh, it's not on 25. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong. Amplitude is 5, period is 2.
No.
Amplitude is 5 though, right?
This is A. This is B. Amplitude's the absolute value of A, so 2. Period is 2 pi divided by B. So that would be 2 pi over 5.
Okay. Alright, thank you.
You still have your notes from yesterday?
I do. They're in my yellow.
You shouldn't use them the whole time, but at first,
Few questions.
yeah, I mean, a reminder, that stuff was all new to you yesterday. let's look at the number 25. So just trying to give everyone enough time to get there and try those. So again, I don't mind working out the ones you guys need to talk about, but let's first look at 5 answers. Question 1, I got F. Two, I got A. 1F, 2A. Number 3, I got A. Number 4, C. And 5B. So, one more time on these practice ACT type questions on this. Number 1 was supposed to be F. The answer to number 2 was A. The answer to number 3 was A. The answer to number 4 was C. And number 5 was B. So if you are good with those, you can just keep on going on the book assignment. And if there's 1 or 2 of these you'd like me to work out, tell me which ones.
Can you do the second one, the one after this one?
This one?
Yes.
Okay. Hold on just one second. Okay, so this one says one of the graphs below is that of y equals a times sine theta for theta between 0 and 2 pi. I just recognize that decimal is 2 pi, where a is a constant. So it looks like if they're talking about the sine graph, you would need to know that sine looks like this. The important part of that is that it goes through the origin like this, going up through the origin. And then the only difference between what I graphed here and their equation here is they put some number in front of sine. But what is that going to change?
It would change the amplitude if it were another number, right?
Well, it is a number. We just don't know what the number is.
Oh, okay.
A is a constant. So it would change the amplitude, right? So this isn't necessarily going up to 1 and down to -1 because we don't know how big A is. But the only one of these graphs, like this one, doesn't go up through the origin correctly, so that's not a sine graph unless it was shifted left or right or something, and this one's not. This one is, but this guy's period has changed, and period is 2 pi over b, and this equation b is 1, so the period's supposed to be 2 pi, so that period's off for choice C. And then choice D, same thing, it's not going up through the origin, which can be fine if you're shifting it right or left, but based on this equation they gave me, they're saying it's not being shifted right or left. So only choice A goes through the origin like this, and it looks like they made A be 3 for the amplitude, but we just needed to be able to narrow it down. There's a plain sine graph, but they may have changed the amplitude, so only choice A for that. Any other questions about this number 2 while it's still up? That's you. Okay, others? Any of the other 5? Okay, then I know some of you have been looking at the book assignment longer than others, but if you have found any questions that you have, there's no reason to wait. In fact, whatever you don't know how to do at the beginning of the book assignment is probably going to domino and keep you from doing other things later in the assignment. So for those of you that have been looking at the book assignment for a while, do you have any questions that you know you need to ask that we can address right now? Yeah.
Can you do
Number 25. Okay, this one says sketch, and so this is where you might want graph paper, and one of them is f of x is sine of x, and the other one is supposed to be g of x is sine of x over 3. Now, honestly, I think the graphing questions are probably the hardest ones. And if you just dive into this too quickly, it's kind of hard to fix your graph. What I mean by that is I can graph this guy very fast. I know what sine looks like. It goes up to 1, down to -1. He's got a period of 2 pi. And it asks us to include 2 full periods. So here's 1 period, here's the second period. So graphing f of x is not a big deal. The problem is, then if you don't think about this one at all until you think you're almost done, this guy has a b value of 1/3. 1/3 is the coefficient of x. His period, 2 pi divided by b, is going to be 2 pi times the reciprocal of 1/3, which is 6 pi. And now all of a sudden, I need the same pattern to fit in 6 pi of space, and I don't have room for it. So that's where it kind of pays off a little bit to think about the equations before you start graphing them. I'm going to graph this red one first. This would be the regular old sine graph. Amplitude hasn't changed, no vertical shifts, no phase shifts, but the period does change to 6 pi. So my cheat to this question, it's not really a cheat, but okay, so you agree with me that this is 1 period here? So if I want the period to be 6 pi, I have full control over this x-axis. So I'm just going to say that's where 6 pi is, and that's where -6 pi is. I can define the x-axis any way I want to. Now, the harder one's finished, and then I'll do the easier one. This one's supposed to fit in 2 pi amount of space. So since I define this as 6 pi, half of that would be 3 pi, and 2/3 of that would be where 2 pi is. Half would be 3 pi, 2/3 of that would be -2 pi. And then I can try to squeeze this guy. His b value is 1, so 2 pi divided by b for him would be 2 pi. So I can squeeze his pattern into 2 pi of space. But again, if you do this one first with the smaller period and then try to do this one with the bigger period, it's going to be hard to get it to fit in your graph. Do this one first and then that one. Okay, that's all I would do for 25. So anything else about it? Okay. Anybody else who's going to ask about 25 before it goes away? Again, notice I didn't need graph paper there, but if you feel more comfortable making a graph on graph paper, then that's why I gave it to you. So, okay, somebody else have another question from the book assignment ready to go? Okay, then let me give you, I'll start setting the timer here. I'll give you 10 minutes. Oh, yeah, go for it.
47.
Number 47. Okay, this is another graph question. To me, this looks a lot like, it's not the same, but it's pretty similar to the one we did on the back page of your notes yesterday, one that has a whole bunch of stuff here. So at this point, you guys should be getting a little bit more comfortable, but you do need to know where A, B, C, and D comes from. D can be up front like this, or it can be at the end. You guys are used to it being out here, but adding 2 still is going to be a vertical shift. So you have to identify A, B, C, and D. Even though it doesn't say you have to write this down, at some point we're going to have to think about the amplitude is the absolute value of A. All of this has to cross your mind to graph it correctly. Period is 2 pi divided by B, which reduces to 1/3. The phase shift, there's not one because there's no C value. We're not adding or subtracting anything to X. And there is a vertical shift of, this is a positive 2, so a vertical shift up 2. Otherwise, other than these transformations, it's a cosine graph. So I know cosine goes through 1. I'm thinking about, I need to squeeze 5 on my graph, so that's why I'm not putting 1 way up here. 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, with the vertical shift of 2, I probably want it to go up to 7. So. Okay, but if I just graph cosine, and I call this 2 pi and negative 2 pi, okay, that's what cosine looks like. It looks a little squeezed in, but that's just because I'm making my graph that size. Then I would make one change, like the amplitude. If I change the amplitude from 1 to 5, now it's going to go up to 5 instead of 1, down to negative 5 instead of negative 1. Because it's like we're multiplying each value by 5. And 0 times 5 still stays 0. So this is what I would expect 5 cosine of x to look like. You okay with that transformation? Okay. And then me personally, I know you guys are doing it on your own paper. I would either start another graph, sketch the cosine graph very lightly so that it's not in the way, or just erase it and get it out of the way. You don't want to have too much going on in one graph. It's going to make it harder. Okay, then you've got to make some other change. So if I deal with this b, if I need the period to be 1/3. Now this is kind of tricky. This isn't 1/3 degrees, this is 1/3 radians. Right now the period is 2 pi. I have to look at 2 pi of space to see one full cycle. The bad idea would be to say, if this is 2 pi, this is 1 pi. Pi is about 3.14. So 1/3 of this is about 1 radian, and then 1/3 of that is 1/3 radian. That's like way up here, right? I don't want to squeeze this whole pattern into this tiny little space. I'm not going to be able to read it, and it's going to make my graph look crazy. So the hack here is, if you want the period to be 1/3, just like I did on a previous question, I have total control of defining the scale of the x-axis. So I'll just make it go right 1/3 and left 1/3. And that's an easy fix for that. So now I know what 5 cosine of 6 pi x looks like. There's no c value, so I don't have to worry about shifting left or right. But there is a d value, so I do have to worry about shifting up too. So I can take all of these points, shift them up to, reconnect them, and then either erase the previous steps, or mathematically at the very least you need to label which one is your final answer. So you have to do it in multiple steps. Start with cosine, change the amplitude to 5, change the period to 1/3, and then shift the whole graph up to. One step at a time makes it at least doable. Okay. Is that enough? Okay. As I was going to say, let me give you 10 minutes of work time, and then hopefully you have found another question or two. So I'll bug you for questions in 10 minutes.
Can you put the agenda back up so I can see?
Yeah. I also tried to leave it over there. I don't know if you can see the other screen, but there you go.
Thank you.
For this one that says use a graphing utility, does that mean our graphing calculator? Okay.
Yeah, so just throw it in the calculator and then just do a quick sketch so I know that you did it. So. Okay, just one more minute and I'll take some more questions on the board. Okay, it has been a full 10 minutes, so hopefully you guys have found a few more things you need help with, unless it's all just going great. So, which questions have you tried that you'd like me to help out with? What you got?
I just found like the period and like the first few questions.
You need to know what A, B, C, and D are. And the period comes from 2 pi divided by B. So B is the number next to X. Do 2 pi divided by that number, and that's how you get period.
Yeah, but it's like the fraction.
Your period can be a fraction. Are you talking about like question number 5?
Yeah, no, like 7.
Okay, number 7. 7, it looks like A is 3/4 and B is pi over 2. You okay with how I know that? Okay, so then the formula for these is 2 pi divided by B. So you would need to say 2 pi divided by pi over 2. Another way to say that, instead of using this vertical format, we could do it like this. 2 pi divided by pi over 2. And the reason why I say maybe write it like that is because then you might think of it as dividing fractions. Change it to multiplying by the reciprocal, These will cancel and reduce out, and your period's going to be 4. So that's an unusual period. It would be a little awkward to graph it, but as far as just computing what it is, it's just dividing fractions. So, yes.
47.
Sure. We already did 47. We did that last time. I'll leave it up here for a second, though.
Thank you.
Was there something specific about it, or?
No, I just didn't notice you guys said it.
Okay, others? Well, we got about 20 minutes of class left, so I'll do one more 10-minute timer, and that'll give me 10 minutes to answer those questions before you go. You guys understand today's daily meme? You know why the stop sign looks like that?
Yeah. Sideways.
Yep. Pretty clever.
Very clever indeed. Johnson,
Mhm.
I've been grinding on math.
Hmm.
I just do. I've been grinding on math. I need to do a few more math verses. I
No.
just need to finish this song.
Nope.
It's 2 minutes. And I have like a minute.
I don't know what to
10.
tell you. I let you do that the other day reading your book, and then you turned in your test review incomplete, so
It was
that was
not.
your, it was.
No shot. Do you have it by the way, or did you give it back? Test review, just don't write.
Probably put it in Google Classroom, so that's what most people do.
I need to. I'm gonna consult you on that.
Plus, if you only need 2 minutes, you've got that between class.
Wait, so when?
And I'm pretty sure Miss Austin is going to agree that you shouldn't be doing her work in my class.
Okay, that's fair. Fair point. Where did I go wrong here? So I had everything here.
Just lay it down. I have to. Okay, I just do quick scan. Okay. Didn't answer those.
Didn't answer C and D.
At least. But that's one. And looks like you maybe didn't answer that. You started to work it out, but you didn't say what it was.
Huh, interesting. What happened here? What?
I don't know. That's not my phone.
That's my lunch. That's weird. I must actually have taken a picture of it.
That's why you need, if you needed help with those, that's why you need to do the assignment on time so that when I take questions, you know what you need to ask about.
Understand.
Okay, that was already another 10 minutes. So as I said, that would leave us about 10 minutes before we're dismissed for the day. So to give myself time, a couple minutes to answer your questions, I need to start taking those now. So other stuff, anything you found from the book assignment that you want help on before you're out of here and on your own. I'm sorry, 55C? 55C. Zach, what was yours?
Mine was, it was just explaining what the number next to another number meant. So, in 19, it says 3 plus sine 2x instead of having like 3 times 2 sine x. What does that mean?
Well, they want you to see, if you do this, you need to recognize that this is the d variable. So this is a vertical shift up 3. They're just putting it out front.
Well,
If
it means the same.
Same thing. Either way, y is 3 bigger or y is 3 bigger. So it moves every point up 3, moves the whole graph up 3. D can be at the end or at the beginning.
Okay.
But yes, for A, it would have to be multiplied. That's why it's not being multiplied. It's not A, it's D. Okay, and then 55C, I have to look at. 55 does this equation. And in that, G is related to a parent function where f of x is sine of x or cosine of x. In this question, it would be cosine x because there's a cosine here. Describe the sequence of transformations to go from f to g. So if I was starting with this one and wanting it to become that one, because of this, I know there's a phase shift, and it would be right pi over 2. Right, because you're subtracting from x. Pi over 2, because that's c divided by b. b is 1, so that makes it a little bit easier to compute. And then because of this, d value is positive 2. I know there's a vertical shift up to. So that's the first part of the answer. What transformations would you have to use to get from F to G? B, oh, I'm sorry, you just wanted part C. So B says sketch it. C, use function notation to write G in terms of F. So yeah, this is probably something that you guys have never done, but instead of saying G is equal to all of this, another way to say G is to use F within that. So instead of saying cosine of this stuff, cosine x minus pi over 2 plus 2, instead of saying cosine x, we're going to say f of x, because that's what f of x is equal to. So g of x is f of, and instead of plugging in x, they plug in an x minus pi over 2, and then they added 2 to it. This is what it means by function notation. I'm defining g in terms of f. If I plug this in for f and put the plus 2 at the end, that's a different way to look at g. Sorry, I didn't catch whose question that was, but is that enough? Yeah, and that's kind of weird and unfamiliar, but those of you that go into calculus next year, sometimes we do things like, I don't know, f might be like the square root of x times the square root of g, and g is something else, and you kind of have to get used to those being mixed together occasionally. So that's what they're aiming for there. So not too terribly important for now, but you at least need it down in your homework since we went over it. Okay, looks like we are down to about 5 minutes. So what I need you guys to do between now and next Tuesday, however many book questions you didn't get to, you need to try those. Please use the classroom videos that are on the website. All of these should be worked out. That should help you with some of your questions. But one of the first things we'll do on Tuesday is I will let you ask the questions that you ended up having that you didn't get to in class. I have a practice quiz for you so that you can see if you're on track for how hard our quiz should be. And I've got a little bit of extra graphing practice since that tends to be the hardest thing in this section. That will be Tuesday, and then Thursday we will have our 4.5 quiz, and then move on.
And there's no calculator on quiz, correct?
It'll be no calculator. Because we need to see like 2 different ways. Like question 5, I need to see if you know what amplitude and period is without graphing it and measuring it from the graph. If I want to do that, I will give you the graph and then ask you for the amplitude and period. You don't need to worry about what the quiz looks like. Yep.
Hold on.
Yep. Just put it in your binder. It's number 25. It might be one I asked for. I did open some of this up in Google Classroom if you want to start turning them in early. You don't have to, but it might be easier to turn them in as we go than a bunch right before the quiz.